can just calm down, bring the noise level down. This is the quietest I think it's been at the beginning of one of our meetings. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. This meeting, the time, place, and date, time, and place of this meeting has been posted on our building, given to the media, and also posted to the public notice website. We'll do a roll call to begin. Councilman Labrum.
Here.
Councilman White.
Here.
Councilman Baird.
Here.
Councilman Waite.
Here.
And Councilman Burdick.
Here.
To begin, we've asked Councilman White to give us a opening prayer, and then we've asked Tyson Guyman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we thank thee for this opportunity to meet tonight as a city council. We are grateful for this city and this country that we live in. Pray that we may continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have been blessed with. We're thankful for those who serve to protect, keep us safe, and those who serve to help our city and our country run smooth, as well as our state and other necessary government that is required to keep the peace and keep order. We're grateful for the opportunities we have to associate one with another, and pray that as this meeting commences, that we may have a sense of peace here in this room, and we may all give each other opportunity to share their opinions and consider what will be the best for the residents of this city. We are grateful for those who continually watch over and protect us. Pray for those who serve our country to keep us from harm and danger. Pray that thou bless them. Please continue to be with us and guide us in all that we say and do. As we pray in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Councilman White and Tyson. I did notice we had I think it's a scout group come in. Is that correct? And is it Vern, did you say? You're the bishop, right, in White Rocks? Uinta River. Okay. So what we normally do, everyone that's a scout that's visiting with us tonight, raise your hand. Okay, we're going to embarrass you just a little bit. If you'll come forward, we have a little flashlight to give you. So if you want to come forward and get a little flashlight that you can take on a camp out, especially on a hike, come forward. Don't be shy. This guy's not shy.
No matter what age of scout you are.
Yeah. We appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you.
You look like a Davis.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll go ahead and entertain the minutes. I did notice a correction on the first page where it says the meeting was called to order by Mayor J.R. Byrd. I was absent. So that would probably should say Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Waite. Are there any other amendments or corrections to the minutes?
I had a comment to make about the minutes. Let me look at it real quick. On just probably more of a typo, and then another one that I thought was missing a little information. So on the review solid waste request for proposal, it says.
That's page 3.
Okay, I found it.
Says City Manager Ryan Snow explained that we have received one RFP from K&K Sanitation. And I think that should be, we received a proposal in response to an RFP. Is that a better way to put that?
Yeah.
And then on the next section, request to provide recycling. Wasn't there an RFP sent out for that as well?
Same RFP was together for those. One was, one we received from K&K was residential and commercial. Same RFP, the recycling was a different piece of that, and they could
Okay.
do all three or one of the
Okay.
optionals.
Gotcha.
So it's the same RFP.
Maybe just note that proposal from Recyclops was also in response to the same RFP. If that's okay.
Great. Any other amendments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Waite and a second by Councilman Labrum. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. We do have our comment period. Anyone that's here that would like to take up to 3 minutes can address the council. Again, we would remind you, if you do take this opportunity, that you come forward to the podium, state your name and where you live, and also this is for you to just give information to us, so I wouldn't expect a response or it to turn into a discussion. But if there is somebody that would like to take a few minutes at this time, they're more than welcome to. Yep. So I'm going to just introduce you as the swim team, but could you all also tell us your names? So this is the Roosevelt swim team.
Well, I'm Tyson Guyman.
I'm Preston Mingus.
I'm Amy Tribe.
Carson Stewart. And we're here to represent the Union High Swim Team. And thank you for letting us use your facilities every day. And because of that, we have a poster I'd like to give to you.
The whole team signed it, so.
Thank you for allowing us to use the pool and for your support.
So everybody can see that. That's a nice gesture. Well, we're glad that you're enjoying that facility and glad to see that we have a swim team and it's a neat thing for our community. So
It really is.
great. Well, thanks so much for this. I'm going to set this behind us here. Maybe we can hang it up for a little while somewhere. Appreciate that.
Thank
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll just add, in their third year, the boys team is currently ranked first in the state, 1 through 3A.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Third year. They're doing great.
That's excellent.
Girls not far behind, no pitch.
Perfect. What a good thing.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Any others? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our meeting. We have a few public hearings to go over tonight. First of all, we have the 2019-2020 budget reopen. We'll turn some time over to our city manager for that.
Perfect, thank you. So a few things as we've gone through, we're 5 months into our budget. A few things had happened. We had expected a lot of our construction to come in before June. So our budget was presented, approved through May, and estimated what our construction season would be. We finished our construction season, and so one of the biggest items on here will be to reflect that construction that happened this year, planned and budgeted and financed for last year. So that money comes over. So it's not over budget or anything. It is over this year's budget, but if you look at the 2 year together, we're on track that way. So that's one of the big ones. Next is we've had a better than expected year in our merchandising sales at the golf course. And so we're bumping that. There is a cost associated with some of that. So there's both of those, a revenue increase and a cost increase. So you'll see that here, the revenue and the cost and merchandising. This one is, we have found a need to increase a position at the golf course with our greens maintenance staff. And this is budgeting a full-time position into that. So that's what that is. We've come to that need after the season and we said, hey, you know what, based on how we came through the golf season, we really needed to address something. And as we've worked together, that's what we've worked on. The other item is, if you'll recall, the last POs on last month, we approved to pay off 2 loans at 2.5% interest. Those were approved, we have the money to pay those, but as we evaluated, it wasn't in the budget, and so we need to just adjust the budget to include that, so that we can go ahead and pay those loans. And so that is, in a nutshell, what the budget reopen is doing. It's just kind of cleaning up that, and there is some transfers between funds that make all of it work. But what I've outlined is the nuts and bolts of what we're looking to amend. So that's it.
So on the 2016, 2018 debts, we're planning on paying those off.
Those are 2.5%, which is our highest interest rate, and we would look to pay those ones off. We borrowed from CIB. When we originally went to CIB, we were saying we'd have cash to put in. They said, we don't really want your cash, take out loan instead. And it's okay, but now that we're coming to having to pay both of those, we're saying, yeah, let's pay them off instead of holding that. So we do have the cash to be able to do that.
There's not a timeline that we have to wait to pay those, right? Okay, that's perfect. Any other questions by the council?
Just one question, Mayor. Do you have an idea what's driven that revenue stream to positive heights at the golf course? That's fantastic to hear.
So a lot more merchandising that's gone through. Some of it we've done golf carts we haven't done in years past, and so that was one of those that has boosted that. And just good marketing up there. They're doing a good job. We overran. That was one of the items in our last year's budget. We actually overran our budgeted revenue and expenses on merchandising, and which is good. But we're saying let's adjust the budget so that it accounts for both of those. We had enough in other items to not have findings, but we wanted to make sure that we were there. This should give us projected through the end of June. So we're saying, hey, we're trending higher, which is good for us. So, yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll consider ourselves in a public hearing at this point and would allow comment from the public. Again, same process. If you choose to comment, state your name, come to the podium. Seeing none, we'll consider ourselves back in regular session and would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman White and a second by Councilman Labrum. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next public hearing is the Roosevelt City Master Plan adoption. We're going to turn some time over to Horks Engineer.
Where are you guys going? Good to see you again.
Remind us of your name.
Chuck Richens. And we're finally here. Hopefully we finished with this. A lot of sweat and tears are going into this. But late nights, but we've done a good job and had good city input. And it's a really useful quality master plan. The actual document is like over 500 pages, so we've had our GIS department create a story map which summarizes the master plan, which is what we're looking at here. And so I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to have Ryan scroll down, and we're going to go through each chapter or appendix and kind of just briefly summarize what we found. So as part of the introduction, and I have some notes here too. I mean, this is just a small part of the master plan, but it highlights the key points. If you look at the contents, chapters 1 through 6 are required by state law to be included in the master plan. And the other appendices are actually the technical documents which contain capital improvements for infrastructure. Actually, F, G, H, and I are, they're documents that were done in the past, but we decided to include them just as a reference so the city can use them to, if the state of Utah comes in and says, where's your drinking water source contingency plan? They can show them. So I don't want to scare you with this number, that dollar amount I've got there. All of the improvements that we have in this master plan are categorized by 1 to 5 year, 6 to 10 year, 11 to 15, and 16 to 25 year improvements. The 1 to 5 year, 6 to 10 year are the higher priority projects. That total is 304 million. Now, in a 25-year window, how can that even be accomplished? But I want to point out that a lot of that, you have to do a build out in order to tell a developer when he comes in what size pipe to put in. So a lot of those will be paid for by developer, but we have to, look in the future and see, if this guy comes in, has to install a water line or sewer line in the development, we have to tell him what size. So don't be scared by the number. But the earlier time periods are the ones you really want to focus on as the higher priorities. So each of the appendices will summarize those costs in detail for their own specific items. It is estimated that in the 6 to 10 year improvements, approximately 1.1 million would be developer influenced, therefore should be paid for by developers. It is estimated that in 11 to 15 year and 16 to 25 year windows, 15 million and 77 million respectively would be paid for by developers. The population that we've anticipated by 2045 would be around 11,339, which is an additional 4,228 residents. That's a growth rate of approximately 1.88% annually. And that's, basically the number for each appendix, how we've arrived at improvements. So we have a land use section. It's a part of this. It's required by state law. Of that population increase, we assume that vacant, central inner city lots would be developed first. And then the remaining, we divided up between 3 areas: Cove, South Town, and North Crescent. 45% of that would be the Cove, 35% of that would be South Town, and 20% North Crescent. And that land use map you can see was developed with input from planning and zoning. And if you go to the next, if you click on the figure 2.2, 2-2, those are lots outside of city limits that are our best guess of what will be annexed. You can see that there are islands, but it's anticipated that, adjacent developments would come in with them. But these ones, or parcels, I mean, but these ones would be the ones that would develop. So that pretty much covers the land use. Chapter 3 was a economic development plan that was put together by a sub-consultant. We use Zion's Bank to do that. Basically, just, it's an organized chapter to present current economic conditions, and then at the end of the section has opportunities and strategies that, for the city going forward. There's really no projects in that other than this is your current economic situation and here are some options to improve that.
We're working on it. We have a committee now
Yeah,
that's tasked with that, so.
We did meet with them in the beginning stages of this to get their input as well. Chapter 4 is the transportation section. You can see that 1 to 5 year improvements, 4.6 million, 11 to 15 year improvements, 5.9. 16 to 25, that's a big chunk of money, but like we said, outside of city limits, we've kind of got a road network and grid, which is comparable to adjacent, Ballard and the county. And it's all dependent on what happens as far as development. Some guy who develops a spot of land, we've got to provide a road to that somewhere, and that's the actual GIS map on the right. Ryan, if you click on the future LOS, or no, the future network, that third one, that shows the proposed roads. The high priority road at this point, which is included in the 1 to 5 year plan, is a part of 800 south of the cemetery, and we'll get to the cemetery section. You see what I'm talking about. The expansion of the cemetery is a pretty high priority, and part of that involves the realignment of 800 south, and so that's why that portion of 800 south is in the 1 to 5 year improvement.
Just a quick question. Looking at that number of potential if those streets are built out and how much that's going to cost, that's one thing. But as we expand our streets and we get B&C road funds, will those funds cover the repairs and maintenance of those roads?
Generally, B&C is not adequate enough to cover the maintenance, but with B&C and the transportation tax that was passed 3 or 4 years ago, we've generally been able to cover maintenance on them. And B&C is based on mile of road. And so as we have more miles of road, we get more B&C money.
Right.
So we're hoping between the combined of those two funding, we would be able to handle maintenance, but not construction.
Question on one of the priorities, State Street south of Highway 40. Is that one of the widen and increase going south? Isn't that?
That's in the
From Highway 48 south.
Right.
We
So
already have
that's
we already have a
considered,
grant in place to do it. We just have 2 more years. It is in the plan.
okay.
But we just have 2 more years to wait. We have a 5-year waiting, and we're counting down to that one, but it is programmed.
So I guess that's a pre-1 to 5 year improvement. Chapter 5 is an affordable housing plan. And it basically just, it's organized to evaluate existing conditions and then present the greatest needs and priorities for the city. And it's required by state law to be in a master plan. And Zion's Bank worked on that as well. Chapter 6 is parks and trails. And it addresses deficiencies in existing parks, trails, and recreation system and proposes additional improvements to meet future growth, demands, and trends. And if you look at the costs for those, we've got it broken out into parks and recreation and trails. We have coordinated with Sunrise on the Duchesne County Master Plan, Trails Master Plan, as well as national parks on the Cottonwood Creek Trail. Included in that is South Ball Field expansion at Constitution, a park at the Cove, along with the trail through that little wash to the Cove Park, and then some golf course improvements to the amenities and other things in the golf course, other items. So now we get into, those were called chapters because they were required as part of the law. But now we're getting into the appendices, which are capital improvements for cemetery and their utilities. So if you click on the proposed design, that is the plan for the cemetery expansion. Right now, there are 700 lots available, or plots, however you want to call it. It is anticipated that those will be exceeded by 2030, which is not that far. So that's why, you can see 800 South realignment. That's why that portion of the transportation is such a high priority. We have to expand the cemetery, and the plan is to move the road. It'll be phased. If you click on the phases below the proposed design, those are the phases. And they pretty much, not 100%, they pretty much coincide with the planning periods. Phase 1A being, or Phase 1B and 1A, improvements to 1A, Phase 2 being 1 to 5 year windows, and then Phase 2 being the 10+ year improvements. But you can see the associated costs of those as well. And we've tried to, I want to point out when it comes to these budget amounts for the improvement periods, that's why the 10 plus and 11 to 15 and 16 to 25 are so big, is because they're lesser priority and basically to accommodate development. The earlier years, which, meaning the immediate improvements, we're trying to somewhat match a reasonable budget with, So, the projects are all there, it's just trying to push the more immediate ones up, and you guys pick and choose which ones, or just depending on what happens. I mean, the 16 to 25 year line, developer might come in January and that gets pushed up, but it would be a cost incurred by the developer.
Chuck, what formula are you using to escalate those estimates out in the future? Knowing that 5-10 years from now, who knows what the price of commodities are at that time? How are we escalating those estimates?
Well, it's difficult to do because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So, we've added a factor in our cost estimating analysis that would include escalated costs, and hope that for the immediate ones, if we feel more comfortable that we can meet that. But the 11 to 15 years, 16 to 25 year improvements, we just hope that factor will cover that.
Are we using like a 5%, 10% year over year, or
15%.
15% year over year?
15, yep. And B is ordinary law. This update is basically just contains analysis of the existing system and recommendations to accommodate future growth. The map on the right is from GIS and it's streaming live. It doesn't, that's not the maps that are actually in the master plan. I've got those listed on the left. We got existing service parcels, proposed service parcels, the existing system. We got two maps for that, so you can see the zoomed in portion of the town. And then we've got B4, which is existing and replaced lines. Those include, and these are higher priorities, those include transite line replacement and brittle shot coal pipe replacement. Those are pretty much in the 1 to 5 and 6 to 10 year window. If you go to the existing and upgraded, that one includes the replacement of the aging 20-inch line from Neola to town. Now, I know that is a huge undertaking. That's a lot of pipe, that's a lot of money. But we anticipate phasing that over 3 periods, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and 11 to 15 year window, depending on budget. And the other ones that are included in this map as existing and upgraded water are, you can see on the right, the highlighted pipes. Those are pipes that are undersized and we don't have sufficient fire flow because of that. So those are higher priorities to upsize, so we get our minimum fire flow. And then as far as these existing and proposed 6A and 6B, once again, those are your pipes outside of the city limits, within the annexation boundary. Don't know when they're gonna happen, don't know if they're gonna happen, but they have to be in our plan if it happens, if development comes in. There are also in the culinary water section, there are some projects that were staff influenced, just like for the water system, improvements like radio read tower and some of the repair of existing tanks. I failed to mention that one of the higher priorities in the 1 to 5 year is the reconstruction of Hayden Tank. It's $300,000 now. We propose in here to increase it to a 2 million gallon tank. That pretty much covers the water project. Appendix C is secondary. Once again, it's just analysis of the existing system and recommendations to meet immediate needs and accommodate future growth. It's anticipated that in the 1 to 5 year window, we wouldn't have any developer influence, but the 6 to 10 year, 170,000 of that would be developer driven. And the 11 to 15, and 16 to 25, 175,000 and 4.8 million would be developer driven respectively. For the inner city, as you guys are aware, some residents have secondary, some don't. And so to actually put pressurized irrigation in every street to accommodate every resident, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of money. So what we did, and Ryan had a big influence on this, and we talked about the best way to prioritize this. We divided the central part of the city, up into 5 zones, or areas. The first one is 200 north to 700 north between State Street and Union Street. And that's not on the map, it's just, that's just described here. And then area 2 is 1100 west to 500 west between Gates Drive and 100 south. Area 3 is 500 west to Highway 40 between 450 south and 300 north. Area 4 is Highway 40 to 600 east, between 800 south and 100 south. And Area 5 is 800 south to Pole Line between 600 east to 250 west. We divided up into those areas, and then we decided, okay, let's figure out how much it costs to build infrastructure in those areas, to serve residents in those areas, and see what our anticipated usage would be in that area. For instance, $5 million to serve an area that's only has a demand of 1 acre feet versus $5 million to serve an area that has a demand of 5,000 acre feet. Obviously, you want to go with the second choice. For instance, on these zones, we've got zone 1 and zone 3. The cost to install pressurized irrigation in those streets is between 2.6 and 2.8 million. It's roughly the same, but zone 1 has a demand of 140 acre feet. Zone 3 has a demand of 73 acre feet. So, the cost of service, the demand of 73 is relatively the same as 140. So zone 1 would be the higher priority. So that being said, we can fit all of those, or we're trying to push all those into either a 1 to 5 or 6 or 10 year window to get pressurized irrigation in the entire city. And right now, the city has contractually 1,500 acre feet from Big Sand Wash, but the other 1,500 acre feet that was for the fish flow for the Division of Wildlife, right? That's going to be available. So you'll have 3,000 acre feet. So the numbers in the report show that that's plenty to service the entire city. That covers the UI. Sure. We're almost there. So once again, off to the left, you can see 1 to 5 improvements, 6 to 10 improvements, 11 to 15, and 16 to 25. And there's all the maps that are included in the master plan, and the map on the right is just the streaming live GIS data. Shows your existing and your proposed projects. Pipes that are at capacity, we would consider the more immediate. We push into the 1 to 5 year window. If you go to the existing and upgraded, it's kind of hard to see. They're right here. They're just these highlighted ones. This one as well. 15-inch Hancock coal line that ties into the 12-inch at Summerall and goes to 1200 south. It's a 12-inch line now, and it can handle, even though the upstream pipe is bigger, the 15 inches. Currently, the 12-inch can handle everything that's going into it, but that build out, that'll need to be upsized. So that's still a priority, but it's a lesser priority than the pipes that are at capacity. And Other high priority projects, we've anticipated that there should probably be some maintenance done to the existing system, some of the existing system to extend the life of the line or to reduce infiltration. Infiltration just increased treatment costs. So we have about $300,000 worth of lining of existing pipes and about the same amount in lining of existing manholes. We recommend like doing that, breaking it out annually, so it's not that much, but divide, 300,000 divided over 5 years or 10 years, whatever. Just, whatever the budget allows. But we included those as high priority type projects. And then the rest, once again, they're just, if you go to D5, one of those, D5A and D5B, those are projects outside of the city limits that are there in anticipation of development and what it would need to be to service the development. There is also a lower priority project, and it's expansion of the winter storage pond. If you go to D6, winter storage pond is fully capable of handling what influent you have now, but at an anticipated 4,228 new residents by 2045, that would be close to being taxed. We've got it as a lower priority project, but we recommend reanalyzing it over planning period to see if it's still justified. Right now, we show it as being needed by the end of the planning period, though.
We don't own the property south, right?
Yeah, but we have a right-of-way acquisition portion in there.
And Transwest, the power line that goes through.
We've looked at that with Transwest
Yeah.
in the process, so that we've included Chuck in that discussion, so that shouldn't be.
Yeah, make sure that their line and their poles or whatever are not where a pond would be, but on a guide or in between the storage ponds. Perfect. The expansion and the existing. Yeah, we work with them in the beginning stages to make sure that we accommodate them. That's what actually opened up this discussion on expansion. And Appendix E is storm drain. Yeah, two good cleaners in here. This is sliding all over the place. As you guys are aware, we had a public comment period during the process of this master plan. It was advertised on social media. We held a workshop over at the senior center to take questions and talk about, get the public's input on what they want to, basically explain what a master plan is and what they'd like to see going forward. Part of that, we submitted the survey. Storm drain, the results of that survey, they played a big part in the development of storm drain improvements and where we need to put pipes. Where we're experiencing flooding. Obviously we know, south of the drive-in is one spot that has major issues and has in the past, but there were other areas around town that we were not as familiar with. And it's, from those results, we were able to look at some improvements that could take care of those deficiencies. So we did appreciate that very much, the public input. The 1 to 5 year projects were considered the higher priority ones that correct the existing deficiencies. The 6 to 10 year improvements were any inner city type projects, but still they were needed for to accommodate future growth. So basically, they weren't, problem areas now, but going forward, we saw them as being problem areas in the future, in the nearer future. So that's where I can see. And then some of the lower priorities, like we said from the beginning, are don't know where they're going to happen. You just try to get the best idea of what size of pipes, discharge locations, and those are the lesser priorities. Developers would be responsible to install those. So those are all of the chapters and appendices that have capital improvements. Beyond that, we've included traffic studies that have been performed in the past. They're not in the story, but they're in the document. There's also the local technical assistance program, which is LTAP survey of the condition of existing streets that is included in the master plan. And we've updated the source contingency plan, and we've included the recent updates to the Hayden and Durgan well source protection plans. And that's what I have. Don't read the 584-page document. Get it on
You should have told me
PDF
that
and-
before this meeting.
Well, you probably know it pretty well then. I
Um,
kept adding those, like, oh, are you kidding me? But then it made sense with all the previous studies and stuff that we just included for reference. And if you cut F through I out, it would shrink quite a bit, but it's pretty extensive. There's a lot of information there. So we've tried to work with staff and prioritize projects the best we can. Like I said, that 304 million, that's a scary number, but most of that won't be the city's responsibility. That's just all the projects we've anticipated as built out throughout the annexation boundary.
Well, Chuck, on behalf of myself and the council, I think we want to thank you for all the hard work you put into it, as well as our city manager and staff. I know there were surveys that went out to the public as well, and input was gathered, and I mean, it was a huge undertaking. And it's,
Well, I appreciate that. And like I told Ryan and Lee, I've appreciated the opportunity to get to work with the city again and become familiar with everybody. And I feel like I can call everybody by name and laugh and chit chat.
well, and this will be a super useful tool for us and a roadmap moving forward, looking at these projects objectively and giving us ideas and point us towards what projects to put on our 5-year list, 1-year list, all of that in the future. I'm sure there will be some amendments here and there, but this is a huge tool for us to.
And any input we can offer on that, we're happy to. So
Fantastic. Any questions or comments from the council?
Just want to echo what he said. Thank you.
yeah,
It's been done very well. So.
appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. So appreciate the opportunity.
No other comments or questions? We'll open it up. We'll consider ourselves in a public hearing and open up for public comment. If there's any questions or comments the public would like to make regarding the master plan. Seeing none. Right? No? Okay. Seeing none, we'll consider ourselves back into regular session. and would entertain a motion to approve.
So move, Mayor.
Second. Motion by Councilman Waite and second by Councilman Burdick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It was a tie, so I gave it to the. Chuck, thanks again for everything. We really appreciate it. And again,
Thanks, Chuck.
thanks Ryan and Lee and everybody that participated in that. That was a
Anna and Lee have been very helpful.
great thing, so.
Lee and I have read it a number of times, so you are welcome to read it.
I was telling Lee the other day that engineers do not write as well as she does. And
Yeah,
I was very grateful for her input.
Yeah. Well, it'll make for a more interesting read then.
Yes.
Yeah.
We believe that the story map, it makes it so that it's something that you can work from easily instead of having a book that we've had in the past. It sat on a shelf and you had to open it up. So the story map really makes it interactive, and then you can go to that project, you can see it, you can dig deeper, you can have the full detail. The story map will be posted, so will the master plan. So those will be posted on our website. So,
Great.
with all work. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the ordinance 2019-430. This is an annexation petition and ordinance. I don't see anybody.
I don't know, we can talk about it, they've applied.
Right.
So,
Well, that's not them, this is, us.
Okay. They've come before the council before, I know, and
This is, Lee will take this.
Lee, would you?
All right, so we've got two
Listen.
for you. We're gonna start with the Clayton Miller one. We've discussed this before with the council. This is the fastest annexation that we have ever done, so we're thrilled. We've got really fast responses from everyone that we needed. So at this point, the ordinance you have before you is to approve this annexation into the city. This piece of property is owned by Clayton Miller. He is building a home for Craig Labrum on this property and was told that because this property conjoins with city property, in order to receive a water connection for that home, we would require annexation, and they have followed through with that process. So that ordinance is before you now, and it's just awaiting your approval.
Any questions?
I make the motion of approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Labrum.
you
Yes.
need to go to a public.
Oh, yeah,
hearing.
sorry.
So,
I almost skipped that since we've had so
Sorry.
much participation tonight. Are there any questions by the council? We'll consider ourselves in a public hearing. Are there any comments or questions by the public? Seeing none, would consider ourselves back in regular session and then would, so we do have a motion on the table by Councilman Labrum. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next.
All right, the next one is the Todd Arnold annexation, which you have also seen before. Todd and Debbie Arnold have purchased this piece of property at 2056 Cottonwood Loop, which is out of the city. Todd is a fire department, or is on the fire department, is on the Roosevelt City Fire Department. He's a firefighter with us, and we do require that our firefighters live within Roosevelt City. So they have sought annexation for this piece of property, and that, again, is the ordinance before you for your approval.
Okay, and this is ordinance 2019-431. Just for your consideration, the Cottonwood Creek subdivision used to be in city limits before it was disconnected. And so they're reconnecting, basically, or annexing back in, so. Any questions?
I have a question. I had someone ask me today about this, just questioning, why do we require our firefighters to live in the city?
That's a good question. It's something that I was on the fire department at one time, and, you know, it's interesting because it would be more helpful in my mind to have a geographical area that was defined versus city limits, because that, I live just east of Todd, and that is far away from the city as you can get and still be in city limits, and is quite a bit further than some areas that are outside city limits for response time. And so that may be something we need to look at.
I would
As a
prefer
council.
it be a certain distance from the fire station or something, and whether they're, the reason that he brought it up is there are people who live outside the city limits who work right in the city that are trained firefighters, but they can't be on the fire department because their residence is outside. But during the day, they're a minute away from the fire station. And they could, in most situations, they could take a call from work and be there quicker than anybody
A
else.
fairly good number are taken at night.
Yeah.
Because we kind of asked the same question when this came up, but some of those come, I don't know, you had the same kind of experience with coming.
A lot of there were a lot. I mean, you never know when the fire's going to start. That's the problem. But ultimately, there are places that are outside city limits that are closer than where I live now, and much closer than other areas in our city. And so
Well,
I
that
think
was the question that was brought up, is the furthest distance that you could be in the city away from the fire department. That may be too big of an area, but if someone lived there, they could be on the fire department.
correct. This is one of those situations. So I think that's a valid point. Something that maybe we can
Just
bring up.
something we can, maybe that ordinance could be changed to a certain distance or something like that.
I think
Not that we don't want people to be part of our city, but.
Great comment. Any other comments? Seeing none, would consider ourselves in an open hearing, a public meeting, and would allow public comment. Any questions, comments? Yes. And please, if you would stand and state your name, at least. We won't make you walk to the podium because there's.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. My name is Dennis Montgomery. I live right here, 27. And I was in the subdivision when it was under Roosevelt City. And then subsequently it was taken over by the county. And I did not want to go back under Roosevelt City. It was a horrible experience. And I can't believe that you're allowing one lot out of the whole subdivision to be annexed into Roosevelt City. And I suspect that there's going to be a gradual creep. Somebody else come in and want to be annexed for whatever reason into Roosevelt City. And I just got wind of this by my wife talking to a neighbor. It's probably my fault. So I am opposed to this ordinance. And I've also heard secondhand that an individual can't object to this, that it has to be the president of the homeowner association.
That is inaccurate. No, you can object. Ultimately, it's the decision of the council to allow the annexation through. It's required by law to hold a public hearing, and any individual can come in favor of or against.
Okay, so what is the city's plans?
I'll speak my opinion, and then if anybody else has any further comments, but really the city has no plan to annex that in, and annexation is something that has to be originated from the property owners. And so really the desire for the Todds to annex in is strictly individual and won't affect anybody else in the neighborhood unless others also want to annex in, and they can do that at their leisure. But it's not something that the city can enforce or force upon and initiate upon the public.
So potential problems, I don't know if Mr. Arnold owns a dog, but if his dog's on my property, who do I call?
The county, because the dogs where the location is.
Pardon me?
The county, because that's where your property is in the county, and you can call the county. But the county is contracted with the city to take care of a lot of that, so we respond anyway.
The only thing that I see is significant that's going to change is his water bill will go down and his taxes may increase slightly. And then the jurisdictional issues as far as police. And he'll get free fire service, meaning if his house starts on fire, he will not be billed.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Appreciate your comment.
Yes, thank you for being here tonight.
And these open meetings are open.
We're still open.
We are, and please stand.
Costco, I'm just wondering what the normal process is. Is this
individually, is that a normal thing to take place? Or is this happening? For an individual in one subdivision to annex in?
I think it's new for us. I don't think I've ever seen this, other than when we've required it, like the previous one. There's a standard that has been set. If somebody wants a water connection inside city limits, and they want a city water connection, and they're adjacent to city property, and they're not currently in city limits, they're required to annex to be able to get city services.
Yeah, I just don't know if this is a precedence. You know, if you start, can I buy another piece of property that's over here and I say, oh, I want to be, and I'm not close to, is it easier here because we already have city water?
I think,
It has to be adjacent to the city.
correct.
Can be.
The only way you can do it is if you're adjacent to the city.
So that's pretty easy to do.
And
That's adjacent to the city.
we feel like that's a benefit. For the city, it's a benefit for people to annex in. And it's a benefit, there are benefits to them as well.
What
And
would
so-
be the opposition for those, he spoke that he doesn't like it, but what would be the reasoning not to like it?
That is a good question.
When we were in, we didn't get any services from Roosevelt City. And the big one, we had a dirt road. And when it snowed, we couldn't get snow removal. And the big reason we got out is the county, with her participation, paved the road.
That makes sense, so you're looking for money to get.
Yeah, well, that was the big reason to disconnect from the city. I actually own 3 lots, actually right next to Todd. And so I don't plan on annexing those lots anytime soon. And there was participation. Like I said, the county came in and paved the road. I think that was the carrot that got everybody excited to disconnect from the city. As far as, right, I'd come up with $1,000 per lot to contribute, and I think it was $30,000 or something. But long story short, it wasn't that the city didn't provide services there. It's that I don't think the city was willing to go in and pave the road at the time, which it shouldn't have been their responsibility anyway. It should have been the developer. So there's.
Same thing happened in Northtown.
Yeah.
And, well, they tried to do the whole subdivision for that, not individuals, that's fine. But it was the same type of thing, going in and going out type of thing. The county came in and took over the whole group
Correct.
later, so they could do it.
And it's all generated by the individual. If there was an individual in Northtown that was adjacent to city property and they wanted the services, they wanted cheaper water rates, they wanted the fire service, the police service, and those types of things, it's within their right to be able to do that. And
I've had somebody that lives in Northtown, that they're on the other side of the road, not the
Correct.
backside, we're adjacent, but he said he would do it, except for the city already said they won't put secondary water in.
well, it's not that we wouldn't. I don't think there was a definite. We've said no,
From
but
the time I've been here, we've never said we wouldn't put water anywhere.
that is
That
definitely
may
a
be-
definitely a conversation we should have. Maybe not here because it kind of, but doesn't pertain to this particular lot. But that's definitely a conversation we would have, and we would love to have Northtown in Roosevelt City. So.
Mayor, maybe one comment, James, to your point, the council last month when it came to us asked the question, is there anything in the ordinance or the plat that prohibits us from bringing one in at a time? Because that question did come about, because it does seem a little odd.
I guess I look at it and go, okay, we got a city employee that's sitting in the subdivision that sits out this message. If you're a city employee and you're adjacent to the lot, then you get a fringe benefit, type thing. And it probably isn't, but I think it's just full disclosure.
Yeah.
So that needs to be taking place, because then we're looking like, we never do this, and all of a sudden, we are gonna do that one, and oh, by the way, he's on the fire department,
Right.
so he knows somebody.
There have
Well,
been a few done in the last few months that didn't have any relative or employee that wanted to do it one-on-one. It has happened more in probably the last year than the last 10 years, one at a time. But
I think the mayor did a good job of explaining how it really comes in. I mean, the property owner has to initiate that. The city's not petitioning that. It just so happens to be in this case that they have that capability because they have bought it. But we did ask that question.
And the other thing is, if it's totally legal to do, it's really difficult for the city to come in and say, well, we don't really like the idea of that, and so we're not going to allow it. Does that make sense? And I've been questioned many, many times because I do the blue. If you see the blue right there on the east, on the left-hand side, that's what I own. And I've been asked several times whether or not I'm in the city, and now I can't really de-annex out of the city, to be honest. And I may have in the future, but now I won't. So anyway, good questions. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mike, so quick question. On the annexing in and annexing out and annexing back in for improving your cost, taxes, connections, things like that. If one takes advantage of lower costs for the county and then wants to annex back into the city, obviously your rates change.
Correct.
There's a discount in fees and services. Is the city, as far as the annexation rules, whatever you want to call them, is there anything that limits that homeowner from annexing back out? Should that occur and they receive benefits from the city as far as cost connection, discounts, things like that? Has that been considered? But it's like, look, are you in or are you out, or are you gonna just bounce back and forth?
No, that's a good.
Which I'm okay with saving money, but the city looking at it bouncing back and forth, the taxpayers are subsidizing the cost of that connection.
Ultimately, the person that is annexing in gets a reduction in their services, but they get an increase in their property tax. And really it becomes a wash. And so it's not, I mean, it's within, if you added it up, it's within, it doesn't affect the taxpayer really one way or the other.
My second question, is there a limit set where if you annex in, you're kind of like, hey, you're committed now, or?
What is the process of disconnecting?
Just kind of on that note, if I can, we don't charge a fee to annex in, but we have a $10,000 application fee to disconnect. So at that point, there's a definite ability to dissuade that as the rates have been established. That
So please do.
You can't go, that tries to avoid those disconnected and trying to play the game. There's that established.
About 10 years, that's
Great.
The way I saw it was the availability of the services we got from the county versus the city.
Yeah.
And the city didn't provide anything. And I'll give you a story.
Well, make it very quick, please.
Okay, John Mills developed the subdivision, and they let him, when the lot was sold and they were going to get the water connection, and he would come down with the apparatus to put the connection in the water meter. And I called Roosevelt City, and I think I talked to Mr. Stewart, and told him I was ready to connect, because I already bought the water connection. And he told me to call John Wells. Well, it wasn't my job to call John Wells, that was his job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, well, I bought a water connection, I'm gonna connect your water, it's up to you to see if you
Right.
get the apparatus over the
Well,
so,
and I get there was a lot, I live in that subdivision, so I know there was a lot that went on. However, and I apologize that your experience with Roosevelt City has been such, but you will not be forced to not annex back again. And we do appreciate your comments. Are there any others that are relevant to that particular lot? Thank you for your comments. Seeing none, we'll consider ourselves back into regular session and would entertain a motion.
A motion
To
approve the
Okay.
annexation. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Baird and a second by Councilman Labrum. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Lee. Oh, the pan. The magic pan.
Thank you for coming.
You'll fill out the rest. Thank you. All right, You're still up, Lee. Yeah. We have, it looks like no, you're not. I lied to you. I was just gonna do it all in one while you were there. All right, we have Moon Lake here with, is somebody representing Moon Lake here with us tonight?
Oh, Unity Based Music Association presentation.
Let's,
Mondays here.
yeah, let's put you first.
They were here very early.
Yes. Thanks for coming.
Okay, so, I'm Wendy Taylor with the Unity Based Music Association, and I'm here with my co-creator, Brittany. And we, first of all, I want to thank Roosevelt City. For the 4th of July, we've been able to utilize your facilities and work with a bunch of bands and things to raise funds to help other things. And we realized in doing that we have a need in the basin to promote local musicians. And there's a lot of them that don't get a lot of opportunities that we've had. And so we would like to help them to come together and create opportunities. So with that being said, we got together and we decided that we would like to work co-hand with the city in some of these events and be able to present some of our best bands and musicians and take them forward. We're working on helping with education for the kids to teach them the skills and the things that they need to be able to copyright their music and to get it going that way. We're working to help
Bring culture
to the
to the city and to the basin.
One thing I've talked with some of you about is being able to use the stages and things. In the past, they've wanted to charge us $50 to do any type of event or anything there. We have wanted to do some things downtown and we help bring people downtown, local businesses and things to kind of put events on to kind of help businesses draw people in and help in downtown. So that's an important thing that we would like to do. Maybe some events by Science Park or something like that where we can use the facilities and
Contribute to the community in a musical culture type of way.
So on our board we have Autumn Reynolds, and she spent, 7 years in Nashville? And she has some really good ideas on how to help us bring culture into Roosevelt City, and we just want to help promote even tourism and things, so if, is that something that you guys are interested in and kind of collaborate and do some events?
Absolutely. Yeah, that gets me really excited. We have an Arts, Parks, and Rec committee. And so we have a subcommittee that's specifically tasked with the arts and culture and those types of things. And they have, they're planning right now for Winterfest. And instead of being like a 1 week and then a weekend, it's going to be 3 weeks long. And they're going to do all sorts of, they'll have events, musical events, dancing, and then also sports and those types of things. But I think that would be a perfect fit. And they meet, I think it's the first Tuesday or the first Wednesday of every month. And we'd love to have you come to that meeting and start to coordinate with that group. Yes, Preston.
The Arts Committee specifically meeting next Tuesday at 7. I have her information through that.
Yes, we heard about that.
And where?
At Emily Graham's house.
Yeah, so Emily Graham. So what we have is we have 3 subcommittees of that full committee. One of them is the arts, and so they meet separate, but then we come together once a month and then we organize and coordinate what each one of us is doing to kind of plan bigger events. Yes. Yeah. And we do have, like I said, the schedule that we have right now is to meet together on a monthly basis. And I think it's the first Tuesday or Wednesday of every month. Right. Thanks, Rowdy. He's part of the committee. Preston's part of the committee. Appreciate them being here. We met on Tuesday the last month, but it's normally the Wednesday. So And then each subcommittee will meet at their leisure to plan their own individual things that then they can bring together and coordinate with the rest of the group, so.
I'd also like to introduce Kathleen Weeks. She's also, she's an educator and teacher, so.
Great.
I just want to let you know who we are and
Hopefully be utilized as a resource.
Oh, you
for
will.
Entertainment or.
we actually have some of the best bands in the state of Utah, and we've been recognized. A lot of us have been on TV, radio stations, different things all over the state, and at state fairs, different states. And we just want to be used in our hometown and be able to share what we have and bring about some fun. So.
Yeah,
Great
excellent.
that you would come in united to do this. This is great.
So I got a question. Broadway style in Nashville or Grand Ole Opry style?
Well, Grand Ole Opry is what you aspire to, but I played on Broadway for 7 years.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was fun.
It's amazing to me, and it was demonstrated in a production that was had not too long ago, but the amount of talent that we have in our community, and we need to show that. We need to, you know, and it's great. I love the fact that you're here tonight. I'm grateful to the council for approving the Arts, Parks, and Rec Committee. I think that's going to be a huge tool, and that's somewhere that you guys can go, and it's well on its way. So you're just going to have to catch up is all. Again, in January, they're planning all these events, so I would definitely get with them and start plugging some of those things that you would like to showcase in that.
I think the things that you're trying to promote and do in conjunction with those, if it's something that the Arts, Parks and Rec is trying to push, then there wouldn't necessarily be a charge because they're paying people to come and do that. So I think it is a win-win for you and them.
Some of the things that we thought of doing was having musicians on Main Street and having them be able to plug into an outlet and Main Street musicians. We had thought about, doing some festivals and things like an Oktoberfest or different things like that. But one thing that we thought is if we could use the Clock Park, we could have musicians through the summer and do a summer concert series. When I was in Idaho Falls and in Montana and Helena, they have one every week and they sponsor a different band every week and it brings people downtown and they have food trucks set up and different things to where people could go to the park and utilize it. And I know that once before when I had talked with a couple of you, we had talked about maybe doing like a fundraiser so that bathrooms could be put in at that park and different things that we are more than willing to do something like that, if that's something you guys would like to do.
Absolutely, and
That's a great idea.
I think through that committee, that's going to be your best effort, and you're going to have 15 individuals after tonight, after we appoint the rest, 15 individuals that are going to be your advocates for all of that. So, yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being patient and so glad you came tonight. All right. Do we have somebody from Moon Lake here tonight? Oh, yes, Mary. Sorry.
I'm here with Mary Stewart representing the collector for a boundary lot line change. I attended planning and zoning in October last month, and it was approved for the boundary lot line change.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I thought you were
No.
interjecting. Okay, sorry.
No.
And so I'm here to obtain signature from Roosevelt City Council and from the Roosevelt City Chairman for the boundary lot line change for the purchase.
Okay. Do you have a
You should still have one from last month.
copy of that? See what we're looking at? And I have to make a clarification. That's why I was, and the gentleman's not here. You can be forced to annex into the city if there's a certain majority that if they desire to annex into the city, then you can be forced to annex in if there is a majority. And so I misspoke and I needed to correct that. And it's on the record and I'll let Mr. Montgomery know. I think that was his last name.
Dennis Montgomery.
Yeah. So, but that is a potential if there is a majority of that subdivision that would like to annex into the city, there could be he could be forced in.
Okay, so the property purchase, so in yellow, green color. Parcel A is the piece of property that Moon Lake is purchasing. And property B, the light blue, is where the boundary lot line will change. So the boundary lot line will move a little bit to the west for parcel B and be included in parcel B. And I've already obtained his signatures, as I said, from planning and zoning and also from parcel B property owner, Nathan Brockbank of the Roger Brockbank Legacy.
So Mary, where is this located at? Like
South State Street, you're just before you go up on top of,
the bench? East side?
Yes.
What's the east side?
Correct. So the property to, the pole line is up here on 2000 South. We kind of
This is
guesstimated
State Street on this side.
at about
Okay.
2000 South. 2000 South is to the north.
South up here.
Yeah, 2000 South up there. There you
In
go.
the top, 3,000 in the bottom, so it's probably
Maybe
2,500.
2,500 then or so. Any questions I can?
That's for additional substation,
Pardon me?
for additional substation.
Correct.
Correct.
Thanks for being patient to get here to speak.
It's a long
We
night.
all have to wait our turn.
Yeah, I do.
It's part of the game.
Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I'd motion.
Well,
Pardon?
not everybody waits as well.
Are there any other comments?
I'd motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilman Waite and second by Councilman Baird. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
You just had to have any, I know the speech.
I'll keep the pen. I have one more.
Thank you.
We're good to go.
Thanks, Mary. All right.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate your time and,
No change.
Practice.
Yeah. I see the gentleman in the back. He's got his already. Would you come forward and introduce yourself? And this is lot line adjustment and master site plan approval for Maverick.
Todd Myers, employee of Maverick Incorporated, 185 South State Street, Salt Lake City. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for consideration of our two applications before you. As you know, we've had a home here in your community for some time and even done some upgrades. And with our store that's just down the street here, it's time to do some more upgrades to better serve the needs of our customers. And so what we've done is we've purchased the building that is just immediately to the west of us. And we're proposing to put in a commercial court, which will serve your semis, but also your larger RVs and people pulling trailers and so forth. With the project, in order to make it work, we needed to acquire a little bit more land to the south, and that's why we have the lot line adjustment going. So some of that vacant property just south of us now will be merged into our lots that we have. The site plan, as you can see up there, the existing fuel offering that we have out in front of our store One of those dispensers, the one on the far west, will be replaced out, and then an additional one will go right next to it. And we'll have clear fuel plus all of our other fuel options there. And then as you can see to the west of the store, we have those commercial lanes. And so, again, you would have all of your fuel offerings. We sell a lot of diesel there, but you also have a lot of people with our recreational vehicles that like to use that clear fuel. And the site plan then lays out so the circulation comes off of the highway, goes over to the State Street, and then back up north to the highway again. One of the conditions of approval that we had at Planning Commission is there's a little bit of street frontage on State Street. That was a condition of approval, and we consent to doing that. Any questions?
Just
You
for
own that white part behind too, is this all where trucks have been parking back there? You go, they've been parking big tankers back behind.
That is the portion of the bottom piece.
Yeah.
The portion you bought, that's the south piece, that is there, they own till the trailer park, but that's not being developed at this point. The piece in between the bottom where the trailers have been, those trucks have been parking, below there is a gap there that is not being developed. But, at this time, but that piece up above would include some of that stuff. And you're not intending overnight parking, so that wouldn't be promoting that, right?
No, we started having this type of fuel offering about 4 or 5 years ago. We are not a travel center. We don't think that's our customer. You're not gonna go in there, you're not gonna find a trucker's lounge, trucker's showers, you're not gonna have overnight parking. Our typical customer is still a lot of soccer moms, and want to make sure the environment is inviting to them.
So is there a proposed expansion of the facility of the store as well, or just
Not
the
at this time.
pump area? Okay.
And just so you can educate me a little, clear fuel?
Ethanol free.
Oh, that's what I prefer.
Yes. Yeah, so it's the blue letters that you see on the side. Ethanol, it's in most of our fuels. It makes you feel good about the environment and so forth. However, it is a little bit corrosive.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't
so,
make your car feel very good, or your lawnmower.
Great.
so the blue lanes.
Any other questions?
It's good to see additions like that. We've done a great job in other areas by separating the bigger, getting them out of where the others can feel more comfortable. I'm glad that this is happening.
This one works out really nice because there are the 2 accesses onto Highway 40.
Yes.
Of course, you have distance requirements that UDOT requires. In this particular case, we've already met with UDOT, and because we're not going to be doing any changes in the right-of-way, we do not have to re-permit. And so it does allow for where the trucks can come in, the vehicles can come in closer to the store. So it's great. I think it's a great way to do it.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, would entertain a motion.
I'll entertain that motion.
Got a motion to approve?
To approve.
Okay.
Second it.
Got a motion by Councilman Burdick to approve, second by Councilman Labrum. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. We'll
Thank
get you
Take your
signed up
signature,
and, yep. Appreciate the investment you've made in our area. That corner's, looks much better than it did 10 years ago, I can tell you that.
Glad to hear that.
They ought to have a standard position for this.
Hands on the engineering.
Are you gonna start during the winter? Is there any plan of when that will start?
I'd like to get all of our permits wrapped up, get the project kid, and just as soon as the ground thaws.
So next
maybe
spring.
just slightly before that. We've got some demolition to do.
This
But
one
with,
doesn't require
Store demolition.
with the type of customer base.
It does or does not.
Definitely want to be there before.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you. That's what I was thinking, that building's so new.
Average newer product, isn't it?
Oh, so they're more than
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Stores too.
What's that?
That's some nice stores.
They do have some nice stores.
Lee? Lee? We're gonna, looks like you're next on the agenda. Now, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Are we moving into Bryce's?
Oh, yes, let's do that. Bryce, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah.
It's been suggested we move to you, I agree. Why don't you come up and let's get this figured out.
I'm Bryce Olson from the Utah. I didn't bring any visuals or anything of that type. I think if you need to, you'll be able to see those. But the reason I'm here is in respect or in regards to the very good of the city farm, which is up in South White Rocks, whatever you want to call it. I think most of you know where that property's at. But the reason I'm here also is because there seems to be some confusion as to the fact that council people and those who know what's going on and those who don't. And I've gotten many comments back. It's like, well, how can you not? It's been going on for 3 years, and especially with the amount of money that has been involved here and the interest that's been put forth on my part, I'm just quite surprised that I'm getting this like, well, I don't know anything about it. I don't understand quite how that can be. But anyway, 3 years ago, next month, or approximately there was an ad in the Roosevelt City Standard as to lease or purchase this piece of property, which there was a number of bids. How many there went in on that, I really don't know, and it doesn't matter. But I was the only one, and then I really questioned myself that put a bid in or proposal to not only lease but to buy the property, being that I would lease it for, I set up a contract and lease it for 3 years for X amount, which was $20,000 a year. And as I said at the time, that the reason for that amount was because I wanted you to be sure that you knew that I was serious about wanting to buy this piece of property, purchase it, not just lease it. I have plenty of lease ground as far as that's concerned. So we went ahead on these terms, and then we finally come up with a contract that was somewhat written. I didn't have a lot to do with it, but the contract is pretty well forward in stating what it says. But I put in a bid, or my proposal was for $3,000 an acre, which was accepted at the time. And then for whatever reason, there was a counter offer come back at $4,500 an acre. And I didn't say much. I says, well, I'm still serious. I want to buy it, but I've got to have water. I mean, even if it was 3,000.
So can I stop you at that? Because I'm one of the ones that this has been going on for 3 years, but I've commented to you several times that I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I didn't mention your name yet, so I'm leaving you out there.
No.
If you want to stay out, I will.
Hey, I'm completely.
I have several people that I'm leaving out here, and I'm trying to protect the names
No.
of the innocent.
Hey.
But I can't understand how anyone can be here that long and not know this.
So this is
was a $700,000 deal, a little bit, and not know what's going on.
Okay, give me just 1 second. This is something that came up just for me about 4 weeks ago, maybe 6 at the most.
So whatever, it doesn't matter.
So that's why
I've
I
been trying
went.
to get this done for a couple of months.
So that's why I haven't known the 3 years, because this is the first time I heard about it. Now, the statement that did we in fact accept the offer at 3,000 an acre, or did we immediately counter
Brought
offer?
it to the council countered back.
Okay.
There was no acceptance, there was we'll take that to the council met, motion and countered back, and that's where the contract sits, is based on
Okay.
the council.
And did you accept the counter offer at 4,500?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now that's, at least that clarifies that part. Okay,
But the
continue.
water was the part, being able to sell or making sure there was available water made for that piece of property. Now, it's had, however you want to say it, it's had 119 shares of high water rights showing on that piece of property and been being used on that piece of property. Now, there's reasons for that, why it has, but also that water is a high water right, which is, there's no storage or anything else. So it's over and above Indian duty for those of you who know about water. So it isn't that good of a water right, if you want to say it that way. It's high water, and it's only when it's high water. So I even accepted that with 119 shares in the fact that, hey, last year I didn't do so good. We didn't get any water.
Now,
Okay, this year I've done fairly well. I mean, you know,
Now, my question to that would be, did you, did you know, or, so there's the 119 shares of water, and I know that's been in, one of your questions is whether or not you're gonna end up with the water or the access to the water. Now, there was never an agreement where the water came with the property, is that correct?
when I proposed it to Ryan, it was like, I said, you don't know that they're showing 119 shares of water, high water on that, as well as there was 9 acres that it showed more than 160 acres. Where's that at?
Yeah.
And, you know, just, there were several things that was kind of vague about. the
So
whole thing.
you felt like when you accepted the $4,500 an acre offer, the water was included or
There
not?
was, no, there was gonna be water made available.
Okay,
I would be able to get water.
okay, perfect. Now, so the next,
We believe that water is important for it.
agreed.
Never.
So just to,
But purchasing water is a.
Okay.
Purchasing the
yeah,
water
so
right.
let's get into that because
Now, right
purchasing,
here, let me just stop you for 1 minute. I know you all know that's about property and different things. And what's happening here in trying to finance, which I don't need to necessarily finance this amount, I can do it without, but if I can't get it financed because there is no water, that's actually a written contract, whether that be a lease agreement, 99-year lease, which was mentioned once,
sure,
and a lease on that water. Try to get financing on that if you don't have water. I mean, you just will cut it in half.
correct. And that's the thing. So we can't sell the water, but we did talk about the lease. And so I guess, is that why we're,
Water right.
we can't sell the water, right, but we can lease the water. And I guess, my question is, do we have a proposed lease for the water that the council can decide on so that to put Bryce's mind to rest that yes, he'll have access to the water and then he can move forward? Is that what you're here for?
Yes,
Bryce?
that's,
Okay.
I'm not, anything in the contract, I'm not being controversy there. I mean,
No,
the 4,500.
I'm just trying to understand it
But that's what it
100%,
is, to
so.
make sure that I've got water for that property. As I said to start with, what is it worth to me? Nothing. I mean, it looks beautiful if you want to say that, but in one sense of the word, but with no water for any amount of time. If I was to purchase that and then for some reason they pull that water and I can't even have that, or whatever that might be, that it was also mentioned that I would be able to probably pump out of the one well.
Sure.
I would have to pay the electrical bill, but that I could pump out of that well.
Sure. Well, so I get your concern. Now I understand much better and much more clear. So,
And that's why I'm here, because it seems to be like half on and half off when we're having to change, just as I've had changes in people involved in this all the way around from Western Ag Credit and different things. It's like, I'm starting all over again now, so.
but we don't want you to do
Council.
that. We don't want you to do that. We want to clarify this. Grant, do you have?
Yeah, this is something that I've been actively working on for about the last 2 weeks. We're not to the stage that we're drafting an agreement yet. It's still something that I'm researching the history of the water, making sure that it is something that we can do a lease on, and then we'll have to figure out whether it's going to be the 119 shares or
well
or both.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm working on where we haven't quite got to the drafting stage, and realistically are probably still a week out from that while I finish researching.
Could we all be in the same room so we could talk the same language to each other rather than, I've chased all over, but every time I go talk to somebody, it costs me $75 to talk to them, whether it's legal matters or titles or whatever, you know, and it gets kind of old, and plus running all over the country trying to finish this up, which when we initially talked, this wasn't gonna happen. I says, let's not get real estate people involved. I want to be on the level and work with Roosevelt City.
Let's do this,
And
Bryce.
I want you to be on the level with me.
Let's do this if we could. So, obviously the details of the contract have to be
They're
found
there.
out.
They're there.
Well, and I mean, what I'm talking about, the land, yes, the water, no. And so he's working on the water. So let's get the details of the water lease and everything else squared up. But at least, I mean, we can't vote on it on the contract, but could we get a consensus from the council that if Bryce were to purchase this property, that we are agreeable that, with the legal counsel, and I'm not asking for a motion to approve that contract. What I am asking is if the council is favorable to allowing some type of contract where Bryce has access to the water. Is that fair enough?
As long as we don't run into a legal problem, which
Correct.
I'm not anticipating we will, but that's what I'm still working on with the research, making sure that it's something that we're able to lease out.
Well, as you can understand, for that kind of money, you know, why, if it didn't have water, I mean, you just go figure that $2,000, $2,500 an acre.
I completely understand, I'm just
Yeah.
making sure that
Yes.
the mayor, whatever he's saying, recognizes that the research isn't finished yet.
Correct.
I'm most of the way through it, but not all the way. I haven't ran into problems yet.
Yeah, a lot of what we'll
This
do.
wasn't a setting that I even want to really come to. I thought we was working this out in the office, you know what I'm saying? But
Well, but
And we
this,
have been, it just sounds like you haven't been
I haven't been involved.
necessarily in the loop.
But the other thing, okay, now the other thing on the contract, which has been kind of mentioned to me, that you ought to get this done now instead of waiting till later and council people and one thing and other, is I'm running out of time because it ends the 31st of December as far as getting this done. Okay, or I got $30,000, well spent $60,000, actually earnest money, I would say. I've got $30,000 that would go back to the purchase price at the time that I purchase it, but that's gotta happen before the 31st, or with you guys, I'm in.
Or we can do an addendum.
Well, I understand this, but it hasn't been seen happening. I've been trying to talk, and the way it's been here lately, if you try to get everybody in the same room together, I'll tell you what, it's almost impossible.
Well, they're not supposed to be in the same.
yeah, we're here right now.
But I think they know how to dodge my phone and dodge my truck and dodge me.
Well, we try,
Some of the price
but
is,
you're good.
when you indicated you wanted to, you initiated that the property wasn't split. We talked about
Right,
splitting
it
it.
wasn't.
So we had to go through a survey, we had to do a survey process, we had to go through all of those processes in order to divide the property. And so that process has been complete, completed in Uinta County, so it wasn't Duchesne County or in the city. So that process has been done. At that point, we weren't able to do some things until the property was divided. So there are a lot of steps. We have had good communication, and we have met quite a few times.
I gotta interrupt you right there, Ryan, on one comment, and that was the fact when we initially set this deal up, at the time we split the property, we need to go back and reevaluate the cost of this, or the amount. I said, you need to get it back to 4,000 an acre. I says, because really, when I put it out at 3,000, when you figure the high water right that we're talking about, or that high water, however you get it, we're not talking that much. I mean, you know, but I'm just saying, to try to finance, and without it at all, it's nothing.
We understand that, and we don't want to get in this meeting, we don't want to get in negotiating whether it's 4,500 or 4,000, because we do have a signed contract for 4,500, yeah.
I didn't say I didn't go along with it.
But I do understand your concern with being able to utilize the water, and I do understand the concern of making sure that water is, that it's legal. Whatever we do to lease is done legally and properly, and it's going to, that way, when we sign that lease, it's going to be years for the 99 years or whatever is decided. So I guess my question to help ease your mind to the council is, could we have a motion to, I guess, do we agree that the water, we should pursue looking in an avenue to get Bryce access to the water?
I'll speak to that, Mayor.
Yeah.
If we have the water capability to provide it, if we have the ability to do that, and we find out that legally we can, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't pursue it.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds like
the water, to my understanding, some of that has to be run on the ground anyway with the changeover and everything that they've done. There's a certain amount of water has to go on that ground.
From the well, what do you mean? And I get
But
that.
the other thing we need to inject right there too is, I need an easement for a maintenance on that ditch.
Well, and that's going to have to be.
So, I mean,
included
there
in-
hasn't been trouble, but so I can
Yeah.
cross that property, the other piece of property, to clean that ditch, or
And-
whatever's necessary.
And that'll be done through the rep C, which we've already discussed that we will do. So that'll be added in to the rep C in the final plat. Now, if the plat doesn't reflect that right now, it'll need to be added to the plat and then added into the agreement. But that's all something, I mean, that's technicalities more than anything. So.
I would agree with Aaron.
Okay. And I agree too. So should we vote on that to move forward based on legal counsel review?
Now, let me just inject one more thing here. With what I was doing, the way I was going to pay, as far as that is concerned, nothing to do with you people, Roosevelt City. I said I wanted to work with them, right from the get-go, didn't I, Ryan? I said, hey, I want to work with them. I mean, I'm willing to work with them any way they want, you know what I'm saying, and get along with everything. But But I got another situation where we're talking quite a few dollars here, and that's the fact that my sale could go away if I wait too long.
Right.
In order to do this transaction. I mean, right now,
Well-
it's there, and it's contingent upon this happening, and they're biting at the bit, they want it, what I'm doing. So.
I get
The
that.
time, and that and the $30,000 towards the purchase price.
Sure.
I think that we need to ease your mind on that because we didn't enter into this contract thinking we were gonna go 3 years and then screw you out of your money.
Well, I didn't think so either.
I think that we just need to, whatever we need to do to extend that time to get it worked out, then you don't have to worry about it's gotta be done right now.
Well,
Because
the problem is he has deadlines with his lending institutions,
Right.
not necessarily
No,
us.
that's
but-
not your.
Well,
problem,
I'm
I'm saying.
just confused because I remember us talking about this and I didn't ever think that we needed to be to this point, because I'm surprised that it hasn't been all worked out already.
Well, ultimately, I think, so we have a motion, it sounds like, from Councilman Waite,
Yeah, I'd make the motion that we move forward in that direction.
and we have an agreement, a second by Councilman Labrum. So the motion is to move forward with pursuing a lease agreement for so Bryce can have access to the water, adequate water, and that's contingent.
Legal right to do
Yeah,
so.
contingent upon legal review and coming to a favorable, price. That's not as eloquent as they say out there, but but it's pretty
Better than a
close.
civil engineer.
Yeah. So, Lee, you should write my script. But, okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Labrum was the second. And, so we'll get working on it. And that'll ease your
I'm
mind.
glad to work with you, and I'm glad for your time.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Some of us that were new on this didn't even know about the agreement.
Well,
But there was never a reason to bring it up, and things,
Yeah.
so I don't think there's any blame anywhere, I just.
No, that's not my point, but I just say I'm getting.
You're getting to a deadline.
Yeah, I've got $30,000 there on that too.
Well, yeah, now you're-
Because we didn't have till next year, the taxes, not nothing to do, it'd be better for me anyway than this year. But I gotta know that I'm not running out of time.
Lee, let's go to you, and then we'll go to the Arts and Parks.
Thank you.
And then we'll go and we'll do a 2-minute recess for bathroom breaks.
Right. You're welcome. Okay, so what you'll see here are the final results of the general election for city council. Across the top, you'll see how those final votes came in. In the lead, we had Don Busenbark with 536 votes, followed by Cody Allen with 505 votes, Vince Riley with 455 votes, Rebecca Pittman with 418, Aaron Waite with 412, and Joe Burdick with 346. Beneath that, you'll see that total ballots counted on election day, we had 860. And then the remaining ballots that were counted this morning before the canvass were 109 for a total of 969 ballots. Just under that, you'll see in Roosevelt City, we have 2,492 active registered voters. With the total ballots cast, the 969, and our total undeliverables, we ended up with 1,267 people who received ballots but did not vote. So not an amazing voter turnout. We're perpetually fighting that battle of getting people to show up.
But a solid 50%.
That's higher than,
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
but not good enough.
Yeah, not good enough. We could do better. But yeah, really, there are places that get like 12%, so we can't complain too much. Beneath that, you'll see the breakdown of our total undeliverables. We had 123 ballots that were returned to us because those people no longer reside in Roosevelt City. They have moved outside of our city limits, either to a different city or to a different state. And we also had 133 ballots for whom we were not able to find alternate mailing addresses to get those resent. So for total, we had 256 ballots that we were not able to have delivered. Total remailed, we had 176 ballots that were returned to us that we were able to find alternate mailing addresses for through the city's utility billing system. We have the advantage of being able to access mailing addresses for our city residents. So we were able to find alternate mailing addresses for 176. Provisional ballots, we had 13 that were approved in this election, and those are included in that total of 109 that were counted today. And then beneath that, you'll see the ballots that were uncounted and the breakdown of those. We had 7 provisional ballots that came in that were cast by people who don't live in Roosevelt City. They have Roosevelt mailing addresses, but that's not the same thing, and that is regularly confusing, I think, for residents in our area. We had 2 that were delivered into the box overnight after the polls had closed on election day. We had 2 that were postmarked after the election. We had 2 with the signature issues. The signature did not match the signature that was on file with the county, and no contact information could be found. We had 2 signature issues for which we did not receive an affidavit. If a ballot comes back and the signature doesn't match, we contact the person whose ballot it is, and we give them the opportunity to submit an affidavit approving that ballot to be counted. And we did have 2 that did not do that. And then we had 1 who returned a primary election ballot, but is no longer a resident of Roosevelt City. So total, we received 16 ballots that we did not count in this election. So that is the breakdown. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council has about that.
First of all, thank you for the detailed breakdown on this.
Of course.
And yeah,
Okay.
fantastic. And thanks for putting in all the work that's a lot of work.
It is.
Mailing them back out, checking, validating, all of that other thing, all of
It
those
is,
other
yeah.
things. So,
It's not the most fun I've ever had. I'm glad it's over.
hey, glad it only happens every 2 years.
Yes, amen to that.
Any questions from the council? Thank you, Lee.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Well done.
Do we need an official?
We do. We need you to make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to approve the canvas as presented by Lee.
So moved. Well, second it.
We have a motion by Councilman White and second by Councilman Waite. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. All right, the Arts, Parks and Rec. We had Preston. He was participating in this as well. Preston is one of our subcommittee chairs over trails and recreation. And there were 3 positions to fill in that subcommittee and 1 position to fill in the Arts Committee. And I forwarded on the information that I got to those respective committee chairs, subcommittee chairs, and they participated in choosing and recommending, not choosing, but recommending to the council who they thought would be best to serve on that committee. And so the names that we had come up with, I'll have to get my email. For the Arts Subcommittee, we had Connie Ellison. And based on trying to stagger everyone, there's no rhyme or reason to the terms, by the way. They're just plugged in there to get us a stagger, to get us started on the right foot. So it worked out that she failed within a 3-year term. Jeremy Tubbs, who works at Tri-County Health, lives in Neola, so she is a non-resident. She was selected for a 2-year term. Cade Koala, who lives in Sunrise Knolls, 2-year term, and Rhett Gilly lives in the northeastern part of town. So we tried to get people that were spread out among different areas of town as well, and so that went into our consideration. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Preston?
No, excited to see these people be appointed here, especially with Jeremy Tubbs being outside. I actually had different referrals from Rural Trails, Duchesne County, dropping her name as a referral. So we're very excited that she applied. It would be something that could help with the collaboration of when we're working on trails and doing those kind of things and knowing what things are in the works in other areas and what kind of resources we can reach out to. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the council? One thing I do like to see is that there were 2 male and 2 female, so it keeps our numbers pretty equal that way, which gives us a good, well-rounded committee. Seeing no questions, would entertain a motion to approve those appointments.
Also move.
Second it.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Labrum and a second by Councilman Barrett. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And Preston's already formulated an email that we're going to send out. He's been very helpful in that, appreciating those that were not chosen and also congratulating those that were. So, thank you.
It's great to see this. It's not moving fast, but that's great. I think it'll be strong and difficult to see this coordination.
Oh, it's moving pretty quick, isn't it?
Well, I mean, but from where you started,
Oh,
when
sure.
it seems it's like getting the jumps in water.
I'm so excited for January and the conversations that we've already had. I just hope that the Roosevelt City residents can keep up with everything that's planned because it's going to be fun. Appreciate all the effort going in there. All right, let's go ahead and recess for a few minutes if we could, and then we'll come back and
Perfect.
get on with the next part of the meeting. Great. All right.
Is that the first time you've done
Are we still recording?
That's gone. I turned it off, we'll back there, we'll merge them tomorrow, we'll merge those two so that somebody
Perfect.
watches in future, they'll won't necessarily see all of them.
That's okay if they say it.
Bathroom breaks.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the next item of the agenda. As many of you know, our city manager, Ryan Snow, has resigned. And so we're moving through a transition period. First of all, we'd like to thank Ryan for his service and everything that he's done in the last 4.5 years. Had a lot of great projects, good projects, a lot of money coming into the city. And personally would like to appreciate him for those efforts and would allow the council, if they so choose, to do the same.
Absolutely. Ryan's been
That's for the December meeting.
What's
Yeah,
that?
we probably ought to cover that in December too.
Yeah.
He's been exceptional. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
doubt with the staff and with planning and follow through and everything else.
And it's been a recommendation by our city attorney that we officially accept that resignation. There was a letter sent out, but I guess this would be the time to officially accept that and again appreciate you for all that you've done. With that transition, we have a couple of things to discuss, things that have come up in conversations that I've had with our city manager. Some of those things are here for our discussion just as a path forward. So the first item here is the application deadline discussion. So we have talked a little bit about, and there was an email that I sent out about the desire to maybe extend those and at least talk about the deadlines for those applications so that we can kind of get a path forward of when we would see realistically the cutoff and then moving forward with the new council to make that decision as far as who would be the new city manager. There was discussion also pertaining to the assistant city manager position where John Zillis has also resigned and also would like to recognize his efforts and the good things that he did for our city. So there was talk about whether or not to freeze the hiring and or firing of staff during this transition period and waiting to allow the new city manager to assist in filling that assistant city manager position and how that would affect the deadline as well as far as receiving applications. So, and it is a discussion, so would entertain any thoughts?
In
Or
response to that, we did extend those 2 weeks is just kind of the standard of, we put 2 weeks, and then we work from there, but those are both been extended through the end of the month. And I think the city manager was longer than that, to the end of the year, at least. And so anyway, just so you're aware that we took that, so do that. So.
Great.
Mayor, I would be very much in favor that we'd get like hire a headhunter to help us go through that process and him do a lot of the preliminary things. It might extend it a little bit, but I think the outcome would be a lot better for all of us.
I agree. In fact, that's the hiring of a broker
Yes.
would be part of that. That's something that in a discussion with our city manager, he brought up as he was going through the same process of interviews and those types of things. He saw that was
It was helpful. I noticed that there was a lot higher quality candidates that were attracted to it, to those that had a broker. And my interest being to leave the city in the best spot it can be, just giving my recommendation that turned out well. So anyway,
yeah, and I think that was appreciate the conversation we had, and that was insightful for me. And so the cost associated with that, as we discussed, could be around $20,000 to $25,000.
That's
I
what
believe.
I would make sure you expect it.
We do have, the council has always had a $50,000 sum of money set aside for council expenditure. And so that's already worked in the budget, something that we could utilize for that type of service. I feel like that would be a good use of that money and finding the right person to fill that position. Are there any thoughts on that?
I agree.
I agree as well.
I think with Ryan's recommendation, talking to him, he had some recommendations that might really help us in timing that he's experienced with that. Because that could be a hard one to find them, but with those
The
recommendations.
Mercer Group has been an amazing one from the applicant side, has been an amazing one to work with. And Colin Benzinger is another one. And I think I've sent that to most of you if you've asked. But those two are ones that I've worked with from an interview side and very professional. I think you'd be happy with both of those. But you can do a lot. We can search for that. I can help you. I can refer whatever you want.
I've been called by the Mercer Group for information on client employees, and I think they're very, very thorough. They dig pretty deep into a lot of different matters. They don't seem to leave any stone unturned. So with what experience I've had, I was impressed by them.
And was that one Ryan was recommending also, Joe Mercer?
What were the two, Mercer, and what was the other one?
Colin Benziger. He is Colin Benziger and Associates. Colin Benziger is the president. He has Utah ties. He doesn't actually live in Utah, but he has Utah ties. And so he does it throughout the country. And so does the Mercer Group. They have different ones in different areas. So I'm not sure exactly which one would be for Utah. There's a group. I've met Jim. He's the president founder and great guy. And the other ones I've met are excellent and well-trained. So anyway, either one of those two, I think you could go wrong.
If we could get that going, that would make it a lot quicker for
the new council.
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree. So I guess the first item of business would be to determine an amount that we'd be willing to spend on that service.
You may want to visit with them so that I'm giving you an approximate.
Okay.
You may want to visit with them. I would recommend that maybe one or two of you call them as reference and find out. But you might want to have a range, just a curiosity. I'm throwing you out what I.
Well, we don't want to let them know what our range is.
No, that's fair enough.
What threshold do we have for expenditure in something like that without going to a competitive bid process?
Yeah, what are the ordinances on that?
I'd have to look at the purchasing one on that one. You have 50,000 on a budgeted item.
But as far as going out to bid, is there a
RFP? We would, I think over 50 would require an RFP. So I think you'd be well under that.
Okay.
So I don't think you have to go out for an RFP.
I agree with getting the broker. The question I have, do we have a good established job description that we can get a broker? That's the key really to the broker going to work. What thresholds do we have? Where do we want those qualifications to be?
We have a good job description we have done because when we did all the job descriptions. So that is written, but what we don't have, that the broker will help with, is a profile of the city and some of the issues that are needing to be addressed by the next guy. We don't have that written, but we do have a job description. So
It
there is
appeared
things
on
we
their,
don't have.
on their website, they kind of specialize in finding city and government employees. So they,
So we have part of
that'd be good.
So it sounds like there's a little bit of work to do, but we can at least move forward with the process, definitely. And I'm trying to think if there's any decisions that we'll need to make as a council. I'm sure we'll have to accept the contract, and we want to make sure that we do that as soon as possible. We may entertain having a meeting at the beginning of December instead of the third week of December. Do you think that would give us enough time to put together this type of information that we can make a decision on by that first week in December? And then maybe we wouldn't even need to have the second meeting in December, or we could. But I think time is of the essence, like you mentioned, Councilman Labrum, and getting this moving forward quite quickly. So.
There has been other comments by the city manager, Ryan, about how to conduct some of the things as we transition, like some of utilizing some of the employees. I don't know if we talk about that openly here.
There is some of that. I would say we originally advertised one for the director of finance and the assistant city manager. As I've talked with John and others, I might separate that. I agree that the assistant ought to be weighed in by the new city manager. But I think we have a good candidate that could be brought in and formed into the director spot. That's internal and just promotion, so that he could take care of that. But that would be a question whether you want me to proceed. But I think dubbing the title of the assistant, those two positions don't have to be together. They don't have to be married together. They can be separate, and then that can be chosen how it goes. So.
One of the things that I noticed, and I was looking through state code again, is that the finance director, and I could read it. I don't know if I printed that off or not, but
We take your word.
well, we can look it up too. So there's the recorder is the auditor for the city, which would kind of fall into that finance director position. And then there's also another appointed position, which is the treasurer, which is it was quasi before, but there's a couple of things that we'll want to identify and make sure we're following proper process. So, if you have a finance director, is he considered the auditor? And if he is, that would be under the recorder's position. And then you have the treasurer. And if that would fit under the treasurer's, that's also an appointed position. And so we would have to make sure that we were following.
Treasurer is appointed director of finance because it's under, the recorder's appointed and the treasurer's appointed, the second tier, the director of finance general isn't. But the treasurer, absolutely, you're right. Treasurer is absolutely the appointed position.
So I think there's a couple of things that we'd want to straighten out and iron out in those regards. But I would still be curious and entertain those individuals and those types of things because
I think the city manager should be very much involved with that.
I will tell you that Randy is doing a great job. At this point, he has been trained to take on payroll and the daily financial. So Randy Robb is doing a good job there. He has a good payroll background, and that, so I think he could fill that one. But I don't know that the city manager role, the assistant city manager role is the right spot for him to work. But I think he does the treasurer, whichever way it goes.
Is there a way to, because I like Randy, I think he does a fantastic job. Is there a way to put him in an interim position until a new city manager's called, the new council is sworn in, and then we can sort out some of those job descriptions as far as treasurer, recorder, and
I like
those.
the idea. I like the idea. I think that I definitely support that.
And the other one that you said maybe temporary,
The other one is, I think, as an interim, I looked at the department heads, and have said, you know what? The one department head, I think, would be a good one to transition in, especially a broker might take 3 to 6 months. I don't know how long. 3 to 6 is probably on the far end, but it will take some time. And Ryan Claiborne is a good candidate. I think he would be good as an interim and be able to help him. I'd be able to work with him over the time so that we had an easy transition. And then, I'm not sure he's interested long-term, but I know that I've visited with him. I would recommend him as an interim so that we can start that transition rather than wait and have a gap in a spot and the things that are happening. Approvals need to be happening, or certain things need to be continuing on. And so that's what I would recommend as an interim if you decide to go that way. That's obviously.
I have absolutely no qualms about that either, but
Is Ryan willing to do that?
Joe's worked with him a lot on those.
Short term, the fill
Are
in
you- Joe's work, I mean, that's been one of your responsibilities.
What is it
Do
again?
you feel good?
So for both of them, of course, Randy worked for me quite a while, and I think with everything that we're being left with, or the new council will be left with, I think there's obviously going to be a lot of more work fall on Randy, especially with the finance director gone. So I don't know that you can put all that on Randy and have him as interim manager. So I think it would be.
Randy is the interim finance
Finance, okay, finance director. And then I think Ryan would be very good at taking the reins for a few months, a month or two, whatever. Because you have to have somebody that's familiar and, he's pretty knowledgeable.
He's really grown since he got the water. I mean, he was the assistant before, but maybe he's just blossomed now.
He and I have been, I know you've, one of the things that comes to mind, Ryan and I have been working on a couple of things, and I've really appreciated working with him and think the same thing. The one thing about the interim, we have that CIB application that we need to be to on the 12th of December. And we want to have somebody there that's somewhat
up to date
and stable in what.
I've been prepping him to be that way.
Right.
That's why he presented the UBAG. That's why he's kind of presented here at our last meeting. He presented. So I'm teeing him up to be that spot, and he is now on the application with you.
Great. And the other thing with that is they're going to want to see some continuity through the transition period and assurance that if, this is going to follow through and we have that. So I think it's important that we have that decision. I know I thought maybe before they would be better to wait, but until you're getting closer, but I think now is as good a time as any.
Yeah, I mean, John's gone, so that's time
So
fast.
So for, oh man, no, I can't remember his name.
Randy.
Yeah, Randy. So are we considering moving him and doing a lateral position change permanently, but then short-term doing an interim position for the assistant city, or the treasurer? No, the finance director.
What I heard was to put him in as interim and then let that be finalized when the new city manager takes.
Okay.
We would put him as interim. That would adjust his pay. We have, because of responsibility and added some as he's grown, we have affected his pay to balance some of the responsibilities. Acting as the director of finance would be a temporary pay jump, which he would lose if he doesn't keep that. But we would make sure that was communicated in both his and Ryan's if he decided for that.
Great. So as far as the transition and the interims, where it is the transition discussion, I would assume that we could make a motion to that. And so do we have a motion to appoint those two as interim finance director and interim city manager until, yes, Grant, please.
Well,
I guess we can't do it.
Recommendations do that, Stephen, because Brian's gonna be here through the end of the year, right?
Right.
So it'd be the
There's not really
assistant.
transition, yeah.
So let's hold off on that one and then just do the assistant city
Well,
manager.
you guys are the ones that are deciding that.
Yeah.
I just wasn't clear on if you're talking about doing both right now or just the finance director and then waiting on it.
Well, there was
I
talk.
think there's some.
What would you
value.
suggest?
It's not a legal decision. I just wanted clarification so that we know for sure what's happening.
And I would, my recommendation would be is,
Have him in.
because the director of finance is actually hired by the city manager, that would be one, if I have your support, I would proceed. If I don't, I wouldn't. But it's probably not necessarily a council hire.
That's true.
But I want your support. If you go that way, I want to make sure that's supported, because I don't want to put him somewhere that, you guys don't support.
So let's clarify that and let's do one at a time.
Okay, perfect.
So the assistant finance director, or no, the assistant manager / we'll just say finance director for now.
Finance director.
Is everyone in favor with moving forward and recommending to the city manager that he be put in, Randy Robb be put in as an interim replacement until a final replacement could be found? Is that?
And being supportive of the decision that I would recommend. So I'm making the recommendation to you. Are you willing to support me in that recommendation as well?
I'd make that.
Yes.
That's really good.
Did you get the motion okay, Carolyn?
To support the recommendation of the city manager for an interim finance director to be Randy Robb.
Correct. That's what we all understand. We have a motion by Councilman Labrum.
Seconded.
Second by Councilman Waite. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'll set the next recommendation so that we can start the transition. If you call them an interim or a transition, so that we can work to that. It would be interim and I would be able to transition those together through the month of December. We'll transition. And at that point, he would be the interim. In January, the council meeting, he'll present.
My personal feeling before was to wait until you were getting closer and the new city officials were sworn in to make that decision. However, there is one thing that concerns me about that, and that is the CIB application. In talking with Ryan Claiborne and in him talking to Brenda, who is over those applications, they want to see some stability. They want to see something in place that's going to, no matter what happens, there's something in place that's going to move forward. And so that has kind of made me think it would be good to have that decision made before that December 12th meeting so that they can see that there's already a plan. We're already.
Well, I really feel like it'd be nothing but beneficial for Ryan to be more involved with Ryan and Ryan and do that immediately and have the official status of being the interim or the transition assistant manager until this new city manager is found, and then it's up to him to work.
And it would be an interim manager, correct? Interim manager, not assistant city manager, but interim manager.
Interim manager.
Or the other one could be the assistant. If you say, no, we want to wait until January, then I would come back and say, well, can we have him be the interim assistant city manager? And
we can't
could
have two of them.
that?
Well, one's the finance director and the other one would be the.
No, I meant Ryan, if we say he's gonna be the new acting city manager, then that means Ryan isn't anymore. So
Right,
we
that
should
is
make
true.
him the interim until Ryan leaves. That's what I would say. And then he would stay interim until
Okay,
the new city
that's fair
manager
enough
comes.
because help us clarify this.
Or even interim displaces.
Yeah.
So let's put him as the assistant.
And that's what I'm saying,
Is
is the interim assistant manager.
Definitely that would give him that, if he's the interim assistant, we would do that. If that's the case, then I would want you to support that, but it wouldn't be necessarily the council vote on having it, it would be a vote to support me to do that, so I have that, so.
So would it be to accept the name of Ryan Claiborne to act as interim assistant city manager until a permanent city manager
As,
is hired?
make it so Ryan's
I would
recommending
say-
them.
I would say that, the same as you did with the finance director, except
Same
for
word.
Ryan as assistant city manager with the same recommendation. So you just copy and paste the other motion.
Basically, just did it as, the city manager, except for the Robert Williams
Yep.
finance director.
Right, and that's, what you do is accept Ryan Clay.
Yes.
Assistant city manager.
Good clarification. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
So to add the verbiage that once, if a new city manager is not hired before Ryan Snow leaves, then Ryan Claiborne would become the new interim manager, or would we have to have another decision? Because, well, we would have to have another decision because.
It's a different
Just as an
decision
item.
making.
Correct.
In our ordinance, in the absence of the city manager, the assistant city manager takes those roles anyway.
So it's
Perfect.
already
It's
taken.
already in our
I think that's
ordinance.
already ordinance, so that's not necessary.
Perfect.
Still is the assistant.
Okay.
And you'll take that one.
So can you read us that motion so that we all understand and make
Motion was
sure?
made by Councilman Blank to accept Ryan Claiborne to act as interim assistant city manager.
Accept the recommendation.
Accept the recommendation
To accept the recommendation of who?
of Ryan Snow.
And I'll make that motion.
Okay, and we do have Aaron Waite's name to plug into that blank.
Second that.
Councilman Burdick as a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hiring of the broker, can we have a motion to move forward with hiring of a broker based on, I guess we would make a decision. We probably should have, we ought to talk about having a meeting at the beginning of December. Is everyone agreeable?
I think it'd be great to have a committee of one outgoing councilman, one that's staying, and the mayor, and meet together to make a recommendation to our council.
On the
Instead
hiring
of-
of the broker?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And you could meet, that could happen sooner and get it going
Okay.
and
Then bring the recommendation to our normal
to
council
everybody,
meeting in
we all
December.
have to, but then we're,
And it's possible that you could bring both of them out and have them interview.
yeah,
And
and some things could happen quickly.
You might be able to do something like that, but I like the idea that you could call them, interview them, and decide, hey, is it clear that you want one or the other? Or
So-
somebody else?
Let's do this. Let's formulate a motion that would allow the mayor to choose what?
Well, I wouldn't say the mayor has
Well,
to
not me,
choose them, but
but no, not. I'm just talking
the
about because I
mayor
would have
plus,
to.
I'm saying that one of the council that's not gonna be here and one of the ones that's gonna be here.
And that's what I mean. How do we decide who those are going to be?
See if anybody wants to volunteer.
I think Councilman Claiborne would be perfect for the
I'm
outgoing.
not,
I
I wasn't
agree.
really wanting to do that.
I really like it. I've worked with Councilman Labrum, and he's a very level-headed, sound, experienced
How good is your
voice.
idea sound?
But I don't like electronics too much.
Well, we'll help you with that. Would you be willing to do that?
I would.
Okay.
And out of these,
Go ahead and take Dustin.
Dustin, would
I
you
think
be willing to do
Dustin's
that?
More accessible.
And we wouldn't be any, against any open laws if we allowed one of the newly elected officials to participate, would we? Without being sworn in?
Well, they're
I don't
not
think it's
subject to
necessary.
open meetings until they've been.
Yeah, so maybe it might
I
not
think-
hurt to have one of them.
I would prefer not,
Okay.
because they're gonna get, all we're gonna do is pick
You're
a
just
broker.
selecting a broker.
They're gonna select the city
They're gonna be
manager.
selected.
Perfect.
Then it
I'm happy
doesn't show any,
To be the third wheel, if
Perfect.
you want me to.
No, absolutely.
yeah,
Because at that point, I'm
he's,
only interested to go, I already have a great spot I'm going.
I think
I love the
that's a great
city,
idea.
But would be happy to serve if you want.
I think that's a great idea. So let's move forward with that committee. Let's put a price range, so not to exceed 50,000. So we'll have that committee decide on a broker that we would choose and not to exceed the amount of 50,000 for those services. What?
And
I don't think we should put a number on it because
Well, I
if
know,
they watch this.
but I'm just saying,
they'll
we
know exactly
actually
how much
have,
we're going to pay.
They will have a schedule and they have. some.
but the problem is
They're
we
not gonna
can't,
Look and say, oh, how much they have.
Okay, good.
we won't divulge
We
that.
don't want those anyway.
The thing of it is we can't expend the taxpayers' dollars without a motion and moving forward with that. And so we have to put some limit and make some type of a decision. It's uncomfortable in an open meeting, but
I would maybe, I have 100% agreement with the process there, but I would, instead of really get too caught up in the discussion of money right now, let's go select the recommendation. Let's come back and find out what procurement items we may or may not have to deal with, and we'll be ready to deal with them in December, one way or the other.
and that's what I'm wondering if we should have.
I know with our RFPs with engineering and professional services, it's 150,000.
Yeah.
You're comfortable 100% that that's,
I know 150 at engineering and that is that engineering is 150.
If we make the decision on the amount now,
50 is the budget. So I don't think.
we don't have to have the special meeting in December. That's what I'm getting at. If we don't make the decision on the amount now, then we have to bring the contract back with the amount. And what I would say is also per legal counsel review of the contract. So an amount with legal counsel review so that, you know.
Puts in a buffer for what your concern was too, Aaron, to verify the amount.
The other thing I'd like to see at the next council meeting is the broker here present to start work.
Yeah, so
I would agree.
I think you could,
So if we could make this decision, we wouldn't have to have the beginning meeting in December. By the third week in December, we would be, well, does that give us enough time? Or would we want to have that?
do we need to do more than the two that have been recommended?
I can get more.
I know, but I'm asking, do we need that?
I would say we shouldn't limit it to those two.
Let's take it, between the three of us, let's take those two. You guys will interview them together. If you guys don't like those.
Four of us.
The four of you to get four of us together. If you don't like those, then at that point, we'll get more.
Okay.
Sounds
And,
Talking holidays.
Yeah, it's next
Right.
week's Thanksgiving.
So
You're making good money, man.
trying to think of how this is going to work timeline.
What?
If we move forward, we have the amount set per legal counsel review. We can make that decision and get them going as soon as we make that decision. We don't have to wait for another council meeting. By our council meeting in December, we'd be well on our way.
See if we could get them set up for the week after Thanksgiving. It's gonna be hard to get anybody.
you're saying if we put the cap amount on there so that here, as we make the motion, we're giving the subcommittee the authority to go out and bind
Up to that amount.
up to that amount.
So we don't have to come back and we can just move forward with that process, which will speed it up so that we can actually have results by our next council meeting versus having to decide on the contract. And that's why I say per legal counsel review, because we're only going to go if Grant says, yes, this is okay, and the amount is within what we've decided here.
I guess I'm more comfortable pushing the final decision to the council meeting because the reality of it is whether we push them forward now or not, you're amongst the middle of the holiday season and you're not going to be actively doing much as a broker. This is the truth. It won't take place until afterwards.
And I get thinking too, the next council that come in will be the ones to make the decision anyway, and there's really no real
hurry.
need to push. Now we have the interim assistant city manager, the finance director in
It
place.
alleviates a lot of the pressure on the push.
Well,
And,
well, let's move forward with the committee. And the amount will be set at the next council meeting. So I guess the motion would be just to move forward with the broker and with that committee.
With this committee to
With-
select a broker.
Yeah, yeah.
Bring a recommendation to the council in December.
Correct. Yeah, so we would narrow it down with the recommendations. Does that sound fair for now?
So,
Let's restate that motion.
Yes, please. Oh, you want me to restate it?
A motion is made by Councilman Blake to move forward with hiring a broker.
And forming a selection committee made up of Councilman Labrum, Councilman White, okay,
Mayor.
to present recommendations at the next council meeting. Sound fair?
We should try to meet as the committee by next week or sooner, at having names that we could review and so we can get doing.
As soon as we're,
For them to interview, so that we can have them on. That would be my answer.
as soon as we're done with this meeting, maybe we can get together. Well, maybe we can get together our schedules and see which days we can meet.
Sounds good.
All right, and then the selection committee discussion, I think that's for the new council to decide, I guess, how they want to
I
do that.
think if you have a broker, they will give you some good advice
Yeah.
on how to develop a selection committee if you decide you want to. They'll also give you good advice on the application deadline, and they will help you through a lot of the process. So I think you have it
Fantastic.
that way. I think it answers a lot of that.
Right. So we'll just postpone that until we get some feedback and move forward that way. Great. Any other discussion on that? Oh, we need the motion, so we need somebody to I guess, make that motion and.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Councilman White,
I'll second it.
by Councilman Baird, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. Purchase orders, I saw those go down the aisle. Is there any questions, comments on purchase orders?
One of our largest ones since I've been on last.
Most of that was the airport, I believe.
Yeah.
A lot of it's airport. We'll
I make a motion, we
100% back.
approve it, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve those
Seconded.
motion by Councilman Labrum, second by Councilman Waite. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have our reports by standing committees. Do you have anything for us?
Yeah, we had a great meeting yesterday morning in the Parks and Recreation. Destin and I were too, and talked about the golf course, and they're doing a lot of tree elimination and trimming. If you haven't looked up there, it's pretty amazing. It'll be great. And also basketball and the Jazz, they reported it's the most participants they've ever had registered. And it's referred to as a recreation league, not a competitive league. And because a lot have been wanting more training and more competition, but that's what it's referred to as the Jazz part. So that's why so many are kind of having AAU ones that are more competitive, but it gives kids that just want to go play to play, but a lot, and it's co-ed up through, I think, 6th, 5th, and 6th. Is that what that is? Is it
7.
into the 7th?
Oh, no.
No, I mean, the co-ed part is
You're right. Yeah, fifth.
only to a certain amount.
Fifth grade.
Just had an interesting thought on that, where you mentioned the recreation, because there are some that would like to see it more competitive and those types of things, but I wonder if, and this is just a thought, there's, in all tournaments or all leagues, not all, but in many leagues, there's A, B, and C leagues, and I wonder if that could be a division as well, and say.
It's hard to eliminate the kids until they're really hard. They've actually got teams from Altamont coming in all the age groups too, down to participate. But that could be, but I don't.
I know my sister, she plays in the C League volleyball over in
Yeah.
Vernal because they just want to go and have fun and they're not competitive.
They do that more with the adults. They can pick and choose, but.
The problem they had was they tried to rank the players based on the level of skills and stuff, and
When they draft them.
it's
The city assigns
obviously
them.
they don't know, and
True.
they afterwards they said that a lot of the teams switched anyway, and so.
But one of the best things that's there is with our city staff that's working together is how they work together in all the departments and share equipment, share expertise, help each other when they need. And they followed up on some things that just didn't cross the plate when I was on it before. It's just, they really work coherently. I've been very impressed with that group.
That's great to hear.
Thank you.
Councilman White, do you have anything for us?
Just a couple of things. Also, that meeting I had, a ULT board meeting, they discussed the task force on the new tax and how that's shaping up. Even after that bill kind of formed, they've made changes still, and so it's whittling some services out still and those kind of things. They still don't know for sure where that's gonna end up and really couldn't form support or not for it because it's not where it's gonna end up. I don't know if we have the issue. There was a big thing about towing. And in cities like Provo and those areas, they have certain private lots that they call it predatory towing, and they get in some problems there. So they're trying to make everything uniform from city to city and have sign regulations that you have to have, how you're gonna handle that kind of thing has to be posted so much. And so that was a big thing for some of the cities. I don't know that it is for ours, but.
It's interesting. It's affected our towing out here, and some of the laws, they rotate the calls on towing according to the tow lot. And one has developed 2 tow lots within his own lot, so he'll get like double the here, and he had to make a name and different things, but it's interesting how that affect how people work things. So you fix one thing and somebody else figures a way to work around things.
Those were the big things, nothing too crazy.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Councilman Barrett? No. Okay. The only thing I can think of is we did get a title search back on the property at the sewer ponds. And that's been given to Stoney. He said that he would work that out and put it on his map. And then when he gets that done, we'll meet together as a subcommittee and look over that and see what we're dealing with.
Is that for the shooting range?
Yeah. Shooting range. So it's moving. It's just moving really slow.
One item is the master plans there might look to see the time frame of growth when different pivots would be required, because that is part of that. So
perfect.
We talked about if you have questions.
Yeah. We'll be getting with you. Hopefully we'll have a meeting. Hopefully we'll get some of that information. We'll have a meeting before you. Yeah. While you're still here, we'll want to do that. So that's all I have. Councilman Wade.
Just one thing. I would say, hats off to the master plan and the work that took place there. That's a lot of work for our city staff and Capital Facilities Committee perspective, I guess. Those folks do a lot of work on that, so appreciate that very much.
That'll be a great tool.
Excellent. Yeah.
We were quite excited. The storybook that he went through is not staying terms. That is something that we've worked with them to move so that it's very interactive, and to have an interactive plan that is easily usable and that is a lot better than reading 500 pages. That is Class A work. So we're pretty happy about that.
We were talking about that too, and that makes that document, that work, become a living document, something that's incorporated in what we do on a regular basis.
Our current GIS, so it's fairly interactive to show what's there, what's present. So when you go in and look, you can see it. That's what we have to have.
And did you say that will be available, that map? Is that available on the website?
It will be.
That's awesome.
There is some nervousness by some different spots of how much infrastructure do you show. We've tried to always side on the side of openness, but when you look at it and in the world we live in, not that the terrorist is ever going to pinpoint us, but you don't want to show some of those. So we still haven't verified how some of that works, or whether it's by login, but whether it's, I don't know. But we do want it accessible as much as possible. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilman Burdick, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to mirror Councilman Labram's comments on the department heads and the capital projects department. Those guys work together, and there's just real good energy and cooperation amongst them all, and they all know what each needs. There's just a lot of synergy goes on there and savings, and proud of those guys. They're hard workers. They've done a lot. The only item that I really would suggest coming out of it is one that Kirby brought up about the Kirby or Clyde getting some sort of cover over their salt and sand so that it's protected from the rain. So because it chunks up, and then it doesn't feed through the sanders. So that might be something you might want to look at for.
I think at this point,
next
because
year.
of the cost, we have the materials, most of it, and it's gonna be able to fit within budget. I think we're gonna proceed unless there's problems, but we have people on staff that can weld, we have piping, so it's just kind of tin, it's not gonna cost us much. So we're pretty
Let me know
excited.
when they're welding.
You like to,
Oh, yeah,
you want to come weld with them?
absolutely.
Okay. Fair enough.
That would make for some good pictures on the website.
Yeah. I used to do that.
See his work first.
Hey.
You might want to put it into work. Appreciate that recommendation.
Nobody said anything about like testing out or anything else. No, I just like that kind of thing. That'd be fun to participate in. Get my hands
So,
dirty.
the way I think we're looking to proceed, I think they can start in the next couple of weeks, but we did talk about it and we thought that would be a big thing.
That's important.
Perfect. Anything else, Councilman Bird?
No.
Thank you. Ryan, report from you.
Well, I've got a lot of them kind of set up that way, but one of the things, water is going really well. Our flows are down right now because we're in between watering your lawn and running water to stop freezes. So we're right in that lowest point of water usage. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, some of both. Most of our different departments, parks, golf, all of those, winterization has been a very big thing among our departments. We're getting ready for the winter. We'll be ready, the Public Works Department is getting their trucks ready, and so that's a big issue. The runway is probably our biggest project ongoing right now. You can see how far we've come with our cost. The money's flowing out, so the project is moving. At this point, the runway is completely paved. The run-up areas are paved, and the lines are painted. We had the FAA out today and did a walkthrough and have a small little punch list on those. And we're expecting within next week, we're expecting to be open by then.
Great.
So we're quite excited. That doesn't own the taxiway, so we'll have the taxiway that will need to be finished next year. But it is well underway. They've been working very good. So we're quite excited about that, and that will finish this. So anyway, we're making progress and things keep running forward. Even though we have shifts and changes, things continue to run. And it is a reflection, and I would mirror those. It is a reflection that we have a great staff. They're some of the best employees I've ever worked with. And so I'm leaving you with some great staff and great depth and great coordination between them. So I am comfortable in leaving knowing that they're there to help. So anyway, have an amazing employees that are still here and doing a great job. So I commend them publicly, and hopefully they all know that I have appreciated them. It is appreciated that you have appreciated them tonight, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. We have, unless there's a need to go into closed session, That sums up our meeting.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Councilman White,
I'll second it.
by Councilman Baird. Non-contestable, it's over.